So today we're going to be tying a little black and kind of a black Sculpin bait fish, just a streamer pattern that rides hook up. It's got a little bit of gold shimmer to it. And we're going to start with a TP 650 26 bent streamer hook from Arex. And the first thing we're going to do is take some of the shimmer rabbit strips. This is black with gold shimmer from Hairline. And we want this to ride hook up. So we want a rabbit strip to lay on there kind of upside down from the view we've got it here. So just take that rabbit strip and pierce the hide. Get that hook to go right through that strip. Throw it back in our vise. And then everything kind of north of that hook shank, go ahead and just peel off the fibers from the rabbit strip. And we're going to take some black thread, give a little bit of a thread base, and then we're going to tie that little bit of hide that we've left there onto the shank of the hook, trying to keep it kind of as straight as possible so that tail has got a nice even keel to it. And I find it's best to just start with some loose wraps and then get it in place how you want it and tighten down on there. And then we'll give ourselves a little bit of a thread base to work with for the rest of the fly, all the way up there to the head. We don't need much. Go ahead and work the thread all the way back to the to where we've got that tail sticking out. And then we're going to take another chunk of the gold shimmer rabbit strip and build a dubbing loop. Now I am by no means very proficient with the dubbing loop. If you want to get a lesson from the true master of the dubbing loop, take a look through our videos, and Matt Calise did a video a little while back, some tips and tricks on how best to spin a dubbing loop. And so what you want to do is thread the cross-cut rabbit strip, or I think it's just a rabbit strip, I'm not even sure if it's cross-cut. Just thread that through the dubbing loop so that you've got the hide on one side and all of the fibers coming out of the other end. And this is not a perfect science. You will certainly lose some fibers doing this, but that's fine. And here's the tricky part. What you want to do is get that all lined up and then cut the rabbit strip, or the hide, from the rabbit strip. You'll see it wants to pull out a little bit. You can just gently push those fibers back into your loop. You got to kind of remain, constantly under tension there, and start giving that thing a spin. And you want to spin it until you see, the fibers all the way at the top start to spin and the thing is nice and tight. Like I said, you'll definitely be losing a few fibers here and there. It's just a tricky business cutting that strip off without losing much. Just get it nice and tight, and you'll see the tighter you go, you start to see those fibers kind of spread out and essentially creating like a dubbing brush almost, but with a rabbit strip. And this technique was taught to me by one of my fishing buddies, Aaron Feely, and it's just a good way to create a nice body of rabbit without all of the added bulk that comes with that hide. And so as we make these turns towards the head of the hook, towards the eye of the hook, just keep pulling all those fibers towards the rear. them from wrapping on themselves, and none of this is a perfect science. And when you're cutting that rabbit strip off, you'll see here towards the bottom, if you cut with a little bit of an angle so that you're actually cutting more of the fibers, more of the length of the fibers towards the bottom of the dubbing loop, you'll get a nice little bit of a taper as we get to the bottom of that loop. Give you a nice taper on your fly. So you'll see those fibers there at the end are significantly shorter than the ones towards the rear of the fly. And then go ahead and tie that dubbing loop off without getting caught in your tool. And it'll look like a bit of a mess at this point, but we're going to clean all that up pretty well here in a second. Take what's left of that and pull it all back nice and clean. Tie that off. Now when you're first trying that technique, and this technique works really well with steelhead flies and kind of anything that you would typically wrap crosscut rabbit over the body of a fly. As you're just getting started, just maybe do this in 2 sections with 2 shorter pieces of rabbit strip. The longer the strip it is, the harder it is to cut the hide off of the dubbing loop without wanting to pull your hair out. So next we're just going to take a little it's kind of like an EP brush. Any kind of a black flashy dubbing brush will work for this. Use the base of those scissors to cut the white wire off. I like this color because it's got just a little bit of red mixed in there. Take our thread to the front and just give some wraps just to give it a nice collar with a little bit of red on there. In my head I like to think that the fish are seeing that and seeing a little bit of either gills flaring or blood, but who knows? Probably tying that piece for the fisherman rather than the fish. Go ahead and tie that off. Trim it out. Now we got a nice brushy collar. Kind of want to get it to lay nice and flat there on the front, because our next step is going to be to throw a little helmet on this thing. We will be cleaning this thing up, but from there, go ahead and whip finish. And we're going to take one of these Sculpin helmets, the fish skull Sculpin helmets. And we want this thing to be riding, hook face up. So you're essentially going to be putting this thing on upside down. And you can throw, if you've got some head cement or Zap-A-Gap or whatever you want to use. We make some products that work very well. I've got this UV clear fly finish and flow just kind of readily available right here, so I'm just going to throw a little bit of that on there. And slide that helmet on, and it always surprises me how well the light kind of cuts through that helmet, through that little front hole, and cures that thing up. But we really don't need to do too much, because we are going to come back in with our thread there at the front. just lay a head that's just wide enough that we can throw some more UV on there and keep that thing in place. Whip finish that off. And take some of that UV fly finish and flow. This stuff can come out quick at times, so just putting a little dab in there. Make sure you don't fill the hook eye there. And you can see it's already kind of mostly cured just from the overhead light I've got here. So this stuff cures quick. And once we've got that piece done, you really don't have to do this. I think it makes them look pretty cool though. The Sculpin helmets come with these little eyes, these little lifelike eyes. And if you're having trouble getting these into the little designated spots for them, you're not alone. And a little bit of just like a toothpick or something can really help there. And again, use whatever your favorite cement is. I like to actually give them a nice little coating of this UV clear fly finish. Make sure we don't have any fibers in there. Take our scissors and just kind of push that thing back into place. And then bake it in. So as you can see, when this thing's upside down, you've actually got the rabbit tail facing in the correct direction. This thing will ride hook point up with that helmet flat on the bottom. Tie some up and tie lines.